Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Talking Points with KPI. Today's episode number 34. We went over the pitching review 2 weeks ago, hitting review last week. Today, we are here with Dan and Chase to go over the 2022 strength review. So like previous podcasts, this is a blog-style podcast, so if you want to go get more granular with your searches, please go to kpimh.com, visit our blog tab. It'll be the first one right at the top. So we're going to get right into it. So Dan, there's I wouldn't call it a disconnect, but I would say a gap of some sorts between how people correlate on-field performances with strength correlation. With this review, you've kind of bridged that gap. I just want you to go into how you've even kind of made that a thing.
Yeah, I'd say up until this point, our assumption that we make is if somebody was throwing harder, hitting the ball harder, running faster, then the strength program that we were implementing was working. And we have had a lot of success, but a core principle of our business is, okay, we need to make things as objective as possible and have ways to hold coaches accountable to the drills, exercise programs, systems that they're building. The problem on the strength and conditioning side was, from a tech standpoint, there was a lack of expertise on my end. And then I think that there was we weren't in the position to figure out what would be the most effective tool in the weight room. And luckily for us, Chase came along and he has extensive experience using force plate technology to really quantify movement, to understand what an athlete's doing, and then again hold us accountable in the weight room to, hey, are we actually making athletes better?
Yeah. So Chase, I don't want you to go into because we'll get into that in a little bit about our force plates, but go into coming in new at KPI, seeing what the strength system had already looked at. How did you come in, want to help that and even kind of increase it?
Well, the system kind of worked that way on its own in regards to the skill side, and for hitting and for pitching, of being able to objectively say that the skill side is working. And it's been a problem for a while, I think, in the S&C world in general, of being able to hold strength conditioning coaches accountable to what's actually working and what's not working. And thankfully, we found Hawkins Dynamics in that regard to help us with that and say, okay, this is working in this way, this is helping on the skill side, in this other way. And then, being consistent with that and getting so much data of all the kids jumping all the time to see those trends happen over time. Yeah. And then, that's where this kind of came up, but it was pretty straightforward, thankfully.
So now, Chase just mentioned it, shout out to Hawkins Dynamics. We use their force plates in the facility. Dan, talk about how you have seen those not only evamp your systems, but make them a little better for the kids in a game style.
Yeah, another really big thing for us is that gamification piece. Yes. We want to make kids aware to where you are, where we want you to get to. Here are the drills, exercise programs that are going to help you do that, and then we're going to retest you to show you progress or lack of progress. Yes. And so I think the force plates as a whole gave us that portal to store the information, to test kids, and to see, okay, what were their deficiencies on a very basic level, and then how were we going to address those deficiencies in the weight room. This has been a long process. I want to point that out, that when Chase came on and we were contemplating, okay, how do we make the weight room more objective and more effective, we talked about a handful of different ways, and once we pulled the trigger on getting force plates, it made that clearer. But even with that, we had been testing the workouts, we have been testing the lifts, we have been using it with athletes to see, okay, will this work within our setting? Yeah. And then when we rolled it out for the first set during the summer into the fall, and then this review is looking at basically the entire time of having the force plates, so June all the way up till the end of leading to this high school season. So we have a lot of data points. We have a lot of athletes that we're looking at to see, like, hey, did this actually work? Yeah. And once we get into some of the results, it is reaffirming that this new system that we built does work. Yes. And I want to also highlight, and this is, he and I have had extensive talks about this. I want to lead by example of when a coach comes along and says, hey, I have something that's better than what you're doing, even if what we're doing is effective, we're going to go after it. We're going to change things. We're going to improve. We're going to continue to push the system so that it can meet the needs of as many athletes as possible. And there is an equal amount of opportunity for me to look at Chase and say, nope, don't want it. Yep. That sensor, it's not telling us the right information, or the research doesn't support that,
Yeah.
or that's not going to work here. That's too complicated. Versus no, let's do this because as one of the owners of this business, we have to lead by example. When I tell him, hey, that hitting drill that you have, I don't really think it's going to work.
Yeah.
You're like, well, here's the blast motion sensor. Bam, it works. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I'll keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
And so I really want to embody that. And I'm not saying I'm not the old school coach because I've only been coaching for about 10-ish years now. But it is something I want to continue to have as a part of this business, that if something better comes along, we're going to change it. We're going to test it. We're going to make sure it's effective, and then we're going to apply it to the entire athlete population.
Yep.
It just goes into like what we want to represent, I think, as a business, right? Of being able to just understand that whatever's best for the athlete is what's best for the athlete.
So true.
If we want to have kids do 10 backflips and that increases their exit velo by 20 miles an hour, then we're all doing backflips. Like that's just the way to go, right? So having the data and things like the force plates and blasts to be able to support what we're doing is kind of I think the charge we're trying to lead just in the industry in general, let alone as a business.
So we talk about the systemizing and the objectifying of the weight room and how difficult that may be due to the data, but you guys have done a great job. So like you said, since we have started using the force plates, 70% of our athletes make these improvements and progress into other strength buckets, like we were talking about. So talk about how you've seen these athletes kind of enjoy the fact that they have something to either push out of or get into.
Yeah, I'd say for us having more buckets that are movement specific based off the jump profiling we do on the Hawkins Dynamics force plates is powerful.
Yes.
Because for the most part, like you think of bodybuilders, bis and tries today, back in
Very selective groups of
that's how programming is done.
it's been that way forever.
Exactly, that's how it's been forever. Then it was we're going to do power, and we're going to do dynamic lifts, and then we're going to do we're going to segment out our lifting based on the exercises and then have the athletes do it, assuming they make the adaptation to be more explosive or stronger or hypertrophy, whatever that is. And so we flipped it on its head and said, no, we're going to look and figure out where you are at and then choose the right program for you to then improve the qualities that we want, whether it's power or strength or body control, whatever it may be. And I think the effectiveness of knowing that 70% of the athletes progressed, we saw improvement in the metrics we want them to improve in, is a step in the right direction. We're working on, and this is I think something I put in the blog, like, is that good? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be phenomenal. We have this is the first time that we've been able to run this enough time to have data to look at to see over a long period of time
if it's
was it working? So this is going to be the benchmark moving forward. We're going to continually try and push that. We're at least getting 70% of kids to progress, and it's going to get higher and higher and higher. One of the big themes that we've seen with this is I instantly got rid of anybody who was only in our gym one day a week. And we're going to improve our adherence with some new things that we're rolling out this summer. But it really got to the point where I was like, it's really simple. If they do our programming, it works. They get better.
True.
And so if you just don't do it, then it makes sense. You didn't get better.
So
I'm going to put you on your own list that we're going to look at and make sure that, hey, what are the things we have control over? Okay, we let athletes in the gym 1 day per week. Not anymore. So we're going to get rid of that. But if they're in the gym only 1 day per week and they're 2 days a week and they're only doing one lift, and it's like, hey, we're going to figure out ways to improve their adherence when they're in our four walls. I was encouraged by this, and it was, for the most part, across each of the buckets we look at, pretty consistent that athletes were improving. And I think it's also a function of, we have a very young population that's not been in the weight room. I think our next task, and we'll probably get towards the end of the podcast talking about this, like our next task is to increase the effectiveness across all ages of experience. So again, like majority of the athletes in our building have never worked out in a structured program before. And so you do it and they're probably gonna get better. It makes our lives pretty simple. But yeah, I think this was a big one for us because we did the same review on the hitting side. We have our hitting buckets and our kids progressing out and growing into other areas to improve. And we saw that consistently across the board with the athletes who did our programming.
Absolutely. And so the review goes into next how body weight is a very big concern, not a concern, but a very big focal point in the weight room. I mean, you put sticky messages out about it. And knowing that our KPI clients is between 110 to 140 pounds just as it is, but there's different levels, 180 to 220, and our top 10 hardest throwing pitchers weigh on the average of 185. So talk about how we've seen a 70% of athletes who have trained with us gain at least 1 pound of mass, and also even 4.6 pounds of mass, and then a total of 16 pounds over a 3-month period.
Yeah,
so talk about how you've seen that.
Yeah. I think if we were doing this, our next step with a lot of this data, we're calling them trends. We want to first look at trends to then have a little bit more pointed direction and path to make correlations, hopefully at some point. Where, okay, hey, this physical quality, this jump profile, this swing, this throw, we want to connect those dots. We're not there yet, but we were building out these trends. We're like, okay, we want to at least start looking. And all right, Chase, give me the top 10 exit velos. Justin, give me the top 10 throwing, and then we'll do the bottom 10 and the bottom 10. Yeah. And I was like, guys, you're literally choosing the biggest and the oldest kids. And there's only a few exceptions to that. But it plays out on the field. You look at the best 12 to 14U teams, they're the biggest kids. Yeah. They're not necessarily the best baseball players, but you see it where when they run into a ball, that ball goes further because they're literally 20, 30, 40 pounds heavier. The average client who comes into our facility, I ask them, what's your body weight? And you can tell with, I was never this category. I was not the smaller kid. I was always the overweight kid. Most of the kids who are underweight or just skinnier for their size, they're just nervous about telling your body weight. Yeah. And they'll lie. They'll say that I weigh 130, 140 pounds because that's kind of acceptable. Where we put them on the force plates, and there's no lying. You weigh 99 pounds. Yeah. It's like the number one limiting factor in your swing and your ability to play baseball is you weigh 1/5 of what a professional baseball player weighs. Like, you are just too small. And so we ran this report to look at the average weight gain, which when you said I think one and some change, like around 1 to 2 pounds. That was a monthly range. So like on average, athletes training with us 2 days a week or more gained 1 to 2 pounds per month during this winter review. So I did the summer, the fall, and then the winter. I looked at just the winter because that was where we had our largest number of athletes. We saw on average in that 3-month span 4.5 pounds gained. Wow. And then the biggest jump that we had seen during the winter was 16 pounds. Yeah. In the summer, I've posted and bragged about this athlete, Jaden. He put on 25 pounds since starting with us. Yeah. It's insane. But when you look at athletes, the number one thing that you have complete control over is gaining weight and gaining muscle mass. It just takes a level of consistency that most people aren't willing to do. It's no different than wanting to lose weight, right? It's the same obstacles. I have to do something. Yeah, I have to do something that I don't like doing. Day in and day out. I can't take a day off or 2 days off, or I have to consistently provide the stimulus, the lifting, the nutrients, the food, and I got to do it for an extended period of time. And you don't see those benefits because, again, when you see somebody gain some muscle mass, and all of a sudden we haven't seen them for a few weeks or two, like even like a week or two, you're like, who are you? Yeah,
you look different,
right? Yeah. But they don't know it because in their mind they see themselves in the mirror every single day, so they don't see that. So. The muscle mass thing, I think, was huge.
I think the hardest part, too, with all this is, like, it's not that, we don't need kids going out there doing the bodybuilding stuff to gain more than 1.5 pounds. I think the idea then is like how the art behind it in my mind is you still, like, we know that the more you weigh, the stronger you are, the harder you're going to throw, the harder you're going to hit the ball. Like, that's no secret. Yeah. But being able to do that effectively and still keep the movement quality is the secret. And that's the hardest part, right? Because it's easy to go out there and gain weight for these kids, but can they continue to maintain the strength that they have and continue exactly because the movement qualities matters most. That's what you're going to use to do your skill. And so being able to teach kids kind of how to move their body, get stronger, gain muscle mass, right? And then all of a sudden, look, now I'm hitting the ball harder and throwing the ball harder. Like, who would have thought?
And I think that speaks to our systems of we hold ourselves accountable to the numbers that actually matter. Jaden could have put that 25 pounds on, and he was a worse athlete. Yeah. He was a worse hitter or worse pitcher. So just saying, and I think this is where the strength coach wants to play it safe. Hey, I'll improve your strength. Exactly. I'll improve your power output. Yeah. I can do all those things. And look at you deadlifted 225. Now you're doing 315. Yeah. Oh, I made you better. Yeah. How do you know? And then how do you know that strength is usable? How do we know that power is usable? And how do you know that it's going to translate to your sport? And the unfortunate part to baseball and softball too, and our skill-dominant sports is there is no guarantee And we really don't have this clear path of 1 + 1 = 2.
Yes.
The thing with baseball, because most of the kids, again, who come into our building, who are they need more muscle mass, 1 + 1 usually equals 5. And if you stay within our systems from a hitting and a pitching standpoint, those things become exponential. A lot of the changes that you want happen instantly. And it's because of just, again, putting on some mass.
Yeah. So staying on the topic of movement, going into one of the last metrics that the review talks about, we do a lot of counter movement jumps, testing the jump height of these athletes, and obviously people can correlate. Obviously, if you jump high, you probably throw hard, you probably hit a little better than most people do. But we noticed that, like I said, our top 10 hardest throwing pitchers at our facility were the top 10 jumpers, looking in a range between 18 to 20, even outside of that 20 range. But you saw an average of 1.1 inches gained in 3-month period, with the highest of even being 5. So go into how you've seen these athletes obviously gain the strength, gain the weight, but now also maintaining the movement with a counter movement jump, which is limiting you in that factor. Talk about how you've seen that work.
Yeah, this is where I looked at Chase with this question. I was like, is that good? And you're like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, obviously, it's improvement, but we have no context. There will likely not be a formula that we will create saying, 1 inch on your counter movement jump equals 10 miles an hour on your X velo. Like, it's not how it works.
Skill of the game always wins.
Exactly. It's not going to happen on that front. But we can say that an athlete who's jumping higher, who weighs more, is going to be relatively more explosive, and then we're going to be a more athletic individual that then we know that does play on the field. We want better athletes. We don't necessarily we don't want better swingers or better throwers. Like, we want better athletes, and then we want to help them apply that athleticism to their sport. And so, I think improving your vertical jump by 5 inches, to me, that sounds astronomical.
Yeah.
I don't think people can really understand. Like, if you watch somebody jump 10 to 12 inches, like, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
But you watch somebody jump 17, 18, 19 inches, like, that person's floating. Like, that's an athlete. Like, they're moving. You see somebody go from 14, 15 inches to 20 plus. And we only have a small number of athletes who jump over 20 inches in our testing. To me, that's massive. But, again, like a 1.5 inch jump, you're looking at a 5-10% increase in your general athleticism. I view this as awesome, and then I was like, okay, I want to run this again. Like, I want to see where we're at, because I just the common theme for our strength program, it's probably true of all programs. If you do it, you're probably going to get better.
Yeah.
And the more consistently and the more attention to detail you have, and the more you care about it, like, we're likely going to see improvements. So. I can't wait to be able to do this again and have more context. We're like, oh man, 1.5 inches, that sucked. Yeah. We just got 3.5 on average. Or like, we got 0.25, that 1.5. Like, maybe we just had a lot of kids who were just brand new and never done this before. Right. Like, who knows? But I'm looking forward to being able to look at this more in depth.
Yeah. I mean, I do think too that, like, it's not outlandish to say that the better we understand who you are as an athlete from an S&C standpoint, and as long as you have the consistency that you need, like the work ethic to be able to get better, like, you're going to get better, right? So if we understand who you are on the S&C side, and then on the pitching side, and then on the hitting side, and we combine all the things together, and you're consistent, like, and you come here, like, you're going to get better. And like, that's the idea, right? Is being able to objectify all this and say, look, this is why we do these reviews. We do this because this shows that we are taking athletes a step in the right direction, objectively, and not from opinion.
The review piece, I think, is so funny, and I think all of us as directors, as we went through this, like, I hate doing reviews. Because it's gonna, like, the whole purpose, and it's just humanity, right? People don't like being held accountable.
Sure.
But when I write the review and knowing, okay, I'm the director of strength and conditioning, and any athlete who didn't get better within our systems, figuring out, okay, what do we have control over? What do they have control over? Okay, we need to fix the things we have control over and screen better on the athletes and make it very, very clear to them, like, this is what you need to do to have the highest chance of success. I hate doing reviews because it's going to expose me as a coach and running these systems, and then my staff. But once they're done, and obviously we hope we always get positive results, but that's not always the case. There are times where we get negative results too, for sure. I get done with them and I'm like, okay, deep breath, let's figure out how to get better. And it's the same thing we ask of our athletes, right? You play a game, you have good at-bats, you have good outings, and you have the reverse of that. Okay, take a deep breath, flush it, and figure out how to get better.
Yeah.
And so, again, like I think the strength and conditioning side, we need to raise the bar as coaches. It's not good enough just to make somebody stronger. It's not good enough to just improve their deadlift or their lunge or their bench press, because we, especially in skill-dominated sports, where, like you said, skill of the game is all that matters.
Yes.
There are people who cannot even, do a counter movement jump without breaking an ankle, and they throw 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
The skill of the game is all that matters. And so I think the more that we connect the dots, the more we make this objective as possible, the more likely we reduce the chances of athletes. Reason athletes are not getting better is not due to us. We're doing everything we can to increase the chances they're going to improve. We put it all on them. It is up to you to implement, to execute, to do it consistently. And it's not just in the facility, it's out of the facility. And that's really the heart of this entire process.
Yeah. All right. Got anything else?
I talked a lot, so I'm good.
Thank you very much for listening to Talking Points with KPI, episode number 34. Like I said in the beginning of this podcast, if you'd like to go look and get more granular in your search, please go to kpimh.com. Under the blog tab, it'll be titled 2022 Strength Review. Thank you guys for listening. See you guys next time. Bang.